Hey everyone, welcome to a Wrestling Inc. exclusive interview with the Bollywood Boyz, Gurvinder and Harvinder. Guys, how are you doing today?
Excellent.
Awesome.
Love the way you said the names. Very
Good.
very dissy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're one of the first people to ever pull that off.
Yeah.
No, it's easy for me. But I mean,
Yeah.
look, my name is Raj, and how many people have a hard time with that? It's always
I bet.
incredible.
Rash.
Yeah, they're like Rage, Roger. I get Roger a lot, but
Oh, Roger.
There you go.
well, man, it's been a busy summer for you guys. I know it's been a month since you've been released. How has everything been going since that?
Just like normal, to be honest. Even after the release, it's not like we sat around wondering what's next. We already know what we're doing, and when we got even when we got released, it was like we were at training. So we train every day. We still go practice and keeping ready, brother.
Yeah, it's actually been kind of freeing. It's been relaxing and no stress. We've been, which we can touch on later. But like 5 years going hard, and prior to that, like 13 years on the independent. So it's like this is the first time we're kind of like just chilling. Like, and it's kind of been nice to be with family and no pressure or stress, and whatever comes, it's gonna come, and just it's actually been really, really nice.
What's funny, Rod, you ask us that because we were traveling and going to tapings throughout the entire pandemic, and now that things are starting to ease off a little bit, now things are getting easier, and here we are sitting at home. Whereas like during the pandemic, we were doing COVID testing, leaving Canada, entering the States, leaving the States, coming back to Canada. So we were getting tested like 4 times a week. So
Jeez.
It's more relaxed now. And
I don't miss the flights right now at all.
Right. So when they were doing the COVID testing, were they also still doing the wellness testing during that time as well? Because I was just wondering how that worked in with the COVID
they just randomly pop up. It's like that surprise. You'll be randomly just at TVs, and you're like, hey, you need to go get tested. So you don't know when it's going to be, and it's just very sporadic and random, which, sometimes when you're putting a match together and you're running around like, oh, now I have to go. It's kind of like, now you have to go spend 2 hours doing that, but it's always random.
Yeah, but they were still doing that even during the COVID era, the empty. So recently Malachi Black, he showed up in AEW. Apparently there was an error with his contract where he had a 30-day release. Did you guys double check your contracts to make sure?
Yeah, no, it looks like we're on the up and up.
Yeah, our date's pretty firm, I think.
Now, I first saw you guys. It was with Global Force Wrestling. It was when they were doing the tapings in Vegas, and I mean, the crowd instantly reacted to you guys. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, okay, these guys have something. They're gonna make it. And not that long after you were invited to Cruiserweight Classic. What I guess what got you on WWE's radar?
Gerv, you could take that one because you got the first email from Dutch, right?
Yeah, so I mean, even going back to that before how we got to Global Force was through Jeff and our involvement with Jeff through Rinka King in India, and which is I think what really put us on the map as far as like, oh wait, there's Indian talent out there that can actually are working and they're around. And I remember Jeff discovered us just off of I think YouTube or something. So we had a bunch of highlight promos up on YouTube, and Rinka King led to Global Force Wrestling, and obviously it didn't take off the way we thought it would. But again, to your point, after that it's when we started connecting with WWE via email, and even before the Cruiserweight Classic. I mean, Harv, this is your story where you actually went to Mumbai, and how all that transpired with your trip to Mumbai after meeting Hunter as an extra in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah,
so
no, it's kind of, I guess, is like we could probably jump back and forth because so many of, in your life, so many things connect the dot when you look back. But like, just first to answer your question, it's like, I think when we did Rinka King and even Global Force, that's when we realized we had value in the wrestling business, that we're TV ready. And I think with our characters, the Bollywood Boys, everybody has a niche in wrestling, and we realized that we had something that's presentable for television. The Bollywood Boys character has never been done in wrestling. You talk about the foreign heels and stuff like that. Like, there's never been 2 Indian actors, and you would understand that Bollywood is huge. there've never been Bollywood movie stars presented on any wrestling program that I can think of. So we always felt like that's something different and unique, and the promos and vignettes, we could do a lot, but unfortunately never able to tap into that with WWE. But yeah, like, you know, we met Hunter at one of the extras works we did. He told me hey, you're doing Bollywood character, why not make it a real thing? And I think he just said it in passing, and I literally packed my bags. And I moved to Mumbai, and I did Anupam Kher, who you probably know who he is,
Right.
His acting school, and he was in Silver Linings Playbook and with Robert De Niro and stuff like that. So I did his acting school. I'd worked with Akshay Kumar. I did modeling, and all this stuff was in hopes to get to WWE, which kind of led us through Global Force, then WWE. But it's crazy how life works out, and you know, you connect the dots.
Everything just seemed to connect. And while Harv was overseas in India pursuing, you know, his quote unquote Bollywood career, you know, I was still doing the indie shots up in Canada or North America, and like, so we were still working together, the tag team, but doing different things and staying in touch with the office.
So, and Harv, you were in the movie Brothers with Akshay Kumar. Akshay Kumar technically has a victory over the Undertaker.
He does, yeah.
25 years
and me, and one of the Bollywood.
and you, yeah. Even though it was Brian Lee that was playing the Undertaker in the
Taker
movie.
actually told us that story at the Performance Center because he was down there a few years ago. But that's, I guess, another story for another day.
Oh no, let's hear it. What did he say?
Oh, just that. Like we were like, hey, you know, like, huge fan. Like, watched that movie as kids, and what's the backstory behind it? And he just told us the same thing. It wasn't actually him; it was Brian Lee that filled in. But all these years later, like, you know, you know, if there's any name that's synonymous with WWE and India,
right.
it's the Undertaker. You know, that you still see his posters hanging everywhere, even to this day. So that's 30 years in the making.
So did they reach out to him, and then he said, you know, because I think he was injured at the time, he was wearing the mask.
Yeah, I think it was something along those lines where he couldn't do it. And then they probably just figured
it was literally on
Bollywood, bro.
It was on TV the other day. I kid you not.
yeah. I remember I was tripping out when I watched that movie. Crush was in it too.
Savio.
There's like fan footage of like Yokozuna and Bret Hart. I wonder if somebody goes through it. They're like, I don't know if that was approved.
I believe it was filmed in Toronto, though. If you watch okay. So I thought it was just a green screen that they threw in the back, but no.
Yeah, no, that's wild. And for people who don't know, Akshay Kumar, I guess he'd be like Tom Cruise. He's been kind of the same age forever, and he's just gotten bigger and bigger as the years have gone on.
I mean, I don't know if you want to touch on it later, but I mean, working with him was truly a dream come true. You know, you think of movie stars, and they're not movie stars for just because they wake up one morning and luck plays in their part. This guy works really, really hard, and I saw it firsthand. He was filming 3 movies at one time. Jeez. Literally, you know, waking up 2 a.m., coming to training for the movie with us, then flying to Gujarat for a film, and then coming back at night to Mumbai, flying to Rajasthan. Like, it's not easy work when you talk about movie stars or these guys like The Rock. Like, Instagram and social media only gives you like maybe 1% of how hard they truly, truly work. And that's what I took away working with him, was if you want to get to that level, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a certain level of dedication.
And it's kind of similar to what Adam Edge told us when we first signed with WWE. He's like, you know, it's one thing to make it, it's one thing to stay. You know, we had the jersey on for 5 years, which is, you know, a credit to the way we were handling business and doing our thing. But to my brother's point, it's like one thing to just make it and then go to the next level. And
and then a 10-year career, 15-year career, 20 years. It doesn't happen very often. A lot of dedication and hard work.
And that's why, even, sorry to stay on the Bollywood topic, but like, even that's why guys like Akshay Kumar, Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, those guys 30 years later are still on top of the industry because of the work they're still putting in.
I mean, I try to explain Amitabh Bachchan to people, and it's weird because it's hard to have a real. It's like Elvis meets Al Pacino meets Clint Eastwood.
It's insane. His fandom, like, I think he's the biggest movie star ever. I think BBC actually had a poll in 2001. They were talking about the biggest movie stars. I think Amitabh Bachchan was number 1, and Marilyn Monroe was number 2, and Marlon Brando was 3, or something like that. But like, anybody who's, you know, knows about films knows how big of a star he is. And I think that's what kind of bring it back to our wrestling. We were our characters. What we were trying to do, I think, what the hard thing was, we were always trying to, hey, let's do these Bollywood like characters on TV. Like, the promos, the dancing, the vignettes, sitting on set in Mumbai. It was just so hard to get it off the ground.
Right.
Sometimes you're pitching and pitching and pitching, and just because Bollywood's so foreign, where we needed somebody who understood it. And we were starting to get to that point where it was like we felt it was coming, so we just kept staying ready on 205, and we were doing stuff on our own on the green screen, like dancing with Salman Khan. I don't know if you seen that stuff. When we won the 24/7 title, we were doing a lot of these vignettes. We were dancing, and it was cool. But if somebody actually got it, like a writer or somebody like that,
sometimes
Sorry,
no, I was just gonna say sometimes you need the machine behind you to get these. You can only do so much stuff on your own on social media with the green screen, because a lot of the stuff we were just doing on our own time and going to the local studio here and just filming things. And one person we do have to say thank you to is John Cena. A lot of these ideas that we were filming for social was, based off the ideas he was throwing at us. And going back to what we were just talking about a minute ago about Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Akshay, all these actors being bigger, and these are things that we wanted to talk about in the promo videos and why Bollywood better than Hollywood.
It's funny, that Superstar Spectacle show that happened in January, they filmed at the Thunderdome. I remember watching it. I'm like, that's literally our characters we've been talking about for the last 4 years. Like, we haven't done any of this, like, all it needs is Jeff did it for us at Ring King, where we had Bollywood background dancers. We just had to do that once, and it's the presentation, and we kind of felt like everything we were doing is on our own, trying to be movie stars, but how do you present it without the machine kind of giving that little bit of that, that push.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get into that process, as far as it seems harder now than ever for young talent to get their ideas through. It seems like there's a huge process, and then it just seems like ultimately what you end up seeing on screen is mostly a repeat of previous weeks as opposed to new and fresh, a lot of times.
And that's just it. I mean, there's only so many times you can go knocking on someone's door or like talking to the same writer about it, and then you're just kind of like, all right, obviously if they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it. If they're you know when you're talking to someone how interested they really are, and that's just to your point. It's like you can only, hey, we got this idea, I think it might work, or like, hey, what about we do this, or like, this is the Bollywood idea we had. So only so much you can do until you're blue in the face.
I mean, as simple as like, again, going back to what I touched on earlier, okay, Bollywood has never been portrayed on WWE television or any wrestling program. Like, again, you talk about heels or baby faces from a foreign country. It's usually very similar. Mm-hmm. I can't think of the last time. Sometimes people say that's why Bollywood's stereotypical, but actually it's never been done in TV wrestling. I can't think of it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, okay, let's do it. And let's do it once, and it's never been done. And sometimes it's the same thing. I mean, I think we worked Everrise how many times, Gerf, on 205, like 3 months
5 weeks
straight,
or
something like that. But it is, to Gerf's point, sometimes you just gotta, you pitch, and then you don't want to be annoying either. And you kind of just let it be, and just, hey, maybe it's patience, maybe it's just our time will come.
Yeah. I did want to ask you, when you first got signed on, we're going to go back again, but with the Cruiserweight Classic, that tournament, when you were first brought in, did you think that was it? It was just for the tournament, or it was like a per appearance deal that they...
Yeah, because even like at that time, we were the only tag team, I believe, that was, as participants, the only tag team in that tournament. And so, for us, it was a bit of like, okay, maybe this is like our quote unquote tryout or our dark match or whatever you want to call it. So, and I remember having that talk with one of the higher ups in TR, and he did say that, like, just go ahead and show Hunter what you guys can do in the ring, and we'll take it from there. And again, to your point and ask your question, was that it? We at that point we were like, this might be the only opportunity we ever get in a WWE ring. But sorry, go ahead.
I was like, I remember the mindset going in was like, I don't care if I get signed. I'm like, hey, it's like you play in the NHL once. Wow, I did it. You know what I mean? Like, at that time, like, we obviously spent a decade on the indies and didn't think it was really going to happen. And like, whoa, you get to wrestle in a WWE ring. Like, I don't know if this is ever going to happen again, but it's like cool to tell your children someday, hey, I had the jersey on. I wrestled in the WWE. I got footage. You know what I mean? You can tell like my journey in wrestling kind of paid off. I did it. I made it to the WWE. But we kept getting brought back. Like, we got eliminated in the first round, but then we got back for the second round, third round. We kept doing like dark matches, and then we did something on NXT. So for us, it was like, okay, I think we stood out.
We're onto
special.
Something.
We're unique. Let's just keep. And I think we came in like 4 or 5 times And then we felt eventually we were going to get it. They want to keep bringing us in.
Right.
But then I think it somehow 205, the idea came and a bunch of us got signed. But it was like we felt very confident after the first one.
Yeah, and so as when they signed you for 205 Live at that time, were those, because the main roster and NXT contracts are very different, right? Like NXT, you do get some things covered. Obviously, the pay is different with the main roster. Were the 205 Live contracts, were those completely different from those two, or were they more like NXT contracts?
Yeah, we were brought under the NXT banner, and so we were signed under the NXT contract. So, but for us at that time, like, hey man, this is still going to be probably the most money you were going to see at that point. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it didn't take a rocket scientist to be like, oh, you guys should maybe take this offer. But, that's where we wanted to be at that time. And so, that was it. And it all happened within 3 months of us doing our first taping for CWCU. I think that was back in June. And by October, November, we were already down in Florida. So it didn't take too long.
Yeah. When you got paired with Jinder Mahal, who came up with that idea?
I believe it was a Road Dogg.
I don't know who. Yeah, but backstory.
I think so. Like, because he was a writer on SmackDown, he talked to us at the show. So I'm assuming he came up with it. But he was the one that sat us down and said, this is where we're going, and this huge opportunity. So it's very similar to what I did with Jeff as the roadie, and with that, as soon as that clicked in our mind, we're like, hey, who knows how your career
it's gonna be a good spot.
Yeah. You look back, I don't know how our careers would have gone if we didn't do it, but you look back and it was like it was a huge opportunity.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, just to add context to that, is after the very first show of 205, we went back to NXT down at the Performance Center. So that call to come up for TVs on that Tuesday was very random for us, and we thought we were going back for 205 Live, but we showed up to Louisville, Kentucky that night, and they're like, oh, we're gonna pair you guys are coming out of the ring here during this match, and you guys are going to be off to the races with Jinder, which we thought was like a 4-week run up until Backlash. But going back to what my brother was saying, Road Dogg pulled us aside. He's like, we don't know how big this is going to be, but this is going to be pretty big for everyone involved, especially for India. So
as the weeks went on, it got bigger.
Yeah, it got bigger and bigger. And I think from what I recall, this was just supposed to be a one-off, and it was supposed to lead to Backlash. And I think I'm assuming that we impressed people, the higher ups, enough where they were like, no, we got to keep these kids. And literally, again, I consider our call up very old school, whereas like it wasn't like, okay, you guys are gonna get drafted to SmackDown and you were gonna put a hype video behind you guys or anything. It wasn't nothing like that. It was more like, hey, come up to TVs. Okay, what are we doing? This is what you guys are doing. And then literally it was like week to week, day by day. Okay, now you guys, hey, get in the rental car and you guys are gonna go to the next set of live events happening in California or whatever. That's how we were getting.
Everything was happening. Even we got booked on a Europe tour last minute.
Yeah, it was.
We were in England. We had no clothes. We just came in for one show with Jinder, and then like, hey, you guys are on the Europe tour. Like we had no clothes, and so we had to. I think we the flight to Germany that night from UK to Germany, and we landed in Germany, and we literally, me and Gerv went and bought clothes because for 2 weeks worth of clothes.
And I think that was like Randy's blessings too. Cause I think Randy was saying, hey, let's get the kids on the entire loop here. So everything for us was just like on the fly, but old school.
Just a little bit more to it. We, as the weeks went on, we realized we knew our spot. This was about Jinder, and it was he was gonna get that championship, and it was his spot, and we were the side acts. So we knew we weren't gonna be like wrestling and doing a lot of stuff, but so we had to get over with our bumps, and that's what Shawn Michaels told us. Like, hey, if you this is the characters you've been given. That's part of being in WWE. Is you have to play different characters, and he's like, but if you get one bump, make sure that one bump gets replayed over and over again, and that's kind of what happened for us, because we knew like we had to get over just with our bumps, because that's what we were there for, was to just bump around.
Yeah, and you guys had some really famous ones with Randy Orton, and Orton obviously publicly was very supportive of you guys afterwards, and it seemed like during that run that he was all in with making Jinder. Like I think
it made everybody look good at the end of the day. I think that program was great.
Right. So how long did it take for you guys to, I guess, officially become main roster guys from when you first appeared with Jinder. Was that a pretty quick thing, or did
After
it have a
we got
backlash?
switched over after the Punjabi prison match, I mean, they saw that big bump and
I know we got pulled in. We got pulled in, and we're like told, "Hey, we're switching your NXT to the main roster contract." And I think that was like 2.5, 3 months later. So again, what Harv was just saying was right after the Punjabi prison there. So that must have been the badge of honor.
Do you guys get any kind of bonus or anything for what you're taking in the Punjabi prison?
I got a bonus for that bump. I remember Mike
Nice.
Chioda was checking up on me, and he was just ribbing me, and he was like, "Oh, you ain't gonna get a bonus for that." I'm on like, what's going on here? I'm like, "Hey, paid?"
No matter how many bumps you take, the pay is the same.
How was it working with Jinder during that
It was
period?
great. Yeah, again, like going back to what we were just saying, everything was on the job learning and training. So like even when we started riding up and down the highways with him, he was teaching us, because he had already come once, left, and then was now back in the game. So he was teaching us the ins and outs of the locker room etiquette, and just here's the gym, here's the hotel, just just a brother teaching us the ways, and it was cool because even on our first European trip, you don't know everything, you don't know the veterans sit in the back or whatever it is. So
Right.
he was very hands on as far as teaching us, and but we learned so much from him. And the coolest thing about not only Jinder's program with Randy, but when he worked with Cena or AJ, it was we were like sponge in those dressing rooms when they were putting together the match or the program, and knowing why they're doing what and spots of the match, and just learning on the fly again. Stuff you can't learn in a classroom setting.
He was very
Right.
good to us. I mean, I remember when he became WWE champion, he was like, "Hey guys, we are the WWE champions." And I was like he didn't need to say that. Like, he's obviously
Right.
a guy going out there having the 15, 20-minute matches on the live events, and we're coming in from the bump. But for him to say that made us feel like, okay, we are a part of this, and he was very good to us. I mean, and we don't really need to be sometimes, right? And obviously we had known him prior to the when we were coming up through the independence. But yeah, very good to us, very kind to us, and it was a good run. It was good for what it was. And going back to kind of talking about, we don't know how our careers would have gone if we had stayed in NXT.
Right.
Maybe it would have been like, hey, more budget cuts. Who knows at that time? But the
Right.
fact we came up like this, earned our merit with The Office and the boys, and so it just, we had a good, fruitful 5-year run for something that we didn't think was going to last very long.
And just wrapping up this part of it is when Jinder dropped the title to AJ, that fall, we thought that was it for us, but we were still after that we started tagging with Jinder and doing 6-man or tag matches on live events or at TV. So it kind of just stayed because I think the package itself worked. So
Right.
the three of us just
It's a very visual package.
It's a very visual package, yeah.
Yeah.
Two smaller guys with this monster. It looked great to sell on TV.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you guys had great chemistry together.
Yeah.
The belief at the time was, they really wanted to expand in India, and which makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's been difficult for pro wrestling promotions to expand there. Did they
Sure.
ever try picking your brain, kind of about business in India, and because it seems like it's more about TV rights and sponsorships than selling subscriptions, and with what the average income and things are over there. Did they try?
I think they were
getting
pretty
advice?
aware of what was going on. They knew the two biggest things in India are cricket and Bollywood movies. They knew all that. They knew the middle class is growing. There is a thirst for WWE and now it's pro wrestling in general. You look at all these companies that are coming into India, which is really cool for guys like us. But they're with their marketing team, and they have enough people on the ground, who kind of understand what's going on. But I think going back to kind of what we were talking about is, sometimes just being Indian, you never take that for granted. That is our heritage. But you look at a guy like Jinder, he was Indian all these years, but they still released him. And then they brought him back. And we're Indian. Okay, we did our thing, got released, brought it back. There's more Indians. Who knows who's going to get released? So, it's not just, hey, he's Indian, let's sign him. You have to prove your merit. You got to be able to go in there and work. You have to be able to, produce a product beyond just being Indian. And so they understand that, yes, there's a thirst, there's a hunger, but as talent, we have to continually keep delivering. You can't just, rest on that.
You can't just be Indian, because I remember when we first sent our very first promotional package back in 2006, and I remember talking to the office at that time for both my brother and I, and they already told us, hey, we already got an Indian guy. His name's the Great Khali. So that, goes to show you that, like, okay, like, we were Indian even 10, 11 years ago on the independent circuit. So, I think timing is a big thing. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, that Jinder run was just about timing. And also, you're going to have to keep in mind, like, ratings in India for anything, especially wrestling, are going to be high no matter what. I mean, I remember the very first episode of Rinka King that aired back 10 years ago. I think it drew like 21 million.
Yeah, something like that. It was
viewers,
crazy.
and that's ridiculous. You don't see ratings like that. And even like the show we did in January did like ratings in the 20 million. So it's like those, but in India, those ratings are like, okay, what I'm saying? It's a country of a billion people.
It's also, Raj, like, perception is reality. If you're perceived a certain way on TV and you're booked a certain way, you're not gonna go into the country and get over, no matter.
Right.
Hey, I'm coming into the country, and like, we were doing a lot of media for India, but it's like at the end of the day, if you're perceived a certain way on television, it doesn't matter, how good you are in the ring or whatever. You ain't gonna get over. So
Right. Like Great Khali, I mean, they did a great job with him. And when I went in 2008, it was like. And the same time period when I went to India in 2008, Khali was there, and it was on all the news. Shah Rukh Khan's trying to get a meeting with them, Sachin Tendulkar. Like, it was huge.
And timing for Khali was great because he was working with Taker, he was working with Cena and the Shawn Michaels. So, like, look at the list of names he was working with. Those guys have already been on TV for 25 plus years in India. So, like, whenever you can get that rub, then you're up there.
Yeah. And that's why we felt really confident, like, obviously getting released. It was a little bit out of the blue. Like, our work was good, and we were working with Shawn Michaels and Terry Taylor every week, and we're like, we were getting great feedback from guys like that. When you're getting good feedback from those two, because they don't sugarcoat it and they tell it like it is. We felt very good at where we were headed and with our characters, and okay, we're on 205, we're being patient, we're waiting. So, but it is what it is. But I mean, there's a lot of, with pro wrestling in general, it's exploding, right? I mean, think of Impact and AEW and New Japan. I mean, India is like the place everybody kind of wants to kind of segue into, and so it's a great time to just be a pro wrestling fan in general.
So when you got released, did they give you any kind of reason, or is it just one of those, it's COVID related or budget cuts?
Pretty much, man. Yeah. It was just straightforward 10-second phone call.
Yeah, I think our phone calls were 30 seconds apart from each other, so it wasn't much to it. Just like, to your point, that's it, right? So what are you gonna do?
Just like, hey, okay, thanks. And, you don't want what are you gonna, like? You don't want to ask, like, hey, why? Like, it's like,
hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah,
somebody wants to break up with you. He's like, why do you?
Wait.
Yeah, we were at training that day. We showed up to training with our boots in hand and everything, and it was like, it's just another day at the office for us. Just get a workout in on our day off, and we just continue working out. That's it, man.
There was like so many cuts. This was 4 cuts this year. 3 or 4. I remember
with office cuts and everything. Yeah,
so I remember there was like 3 weeks before that we were on a Alaska Airlines flight from Orlando to Seattle, and that's a long flight, like 6.5 hours. And I didn't have Wi-Fi on the plane. Gerv had Wi-Fi, and as I walked back just to use the restroom, he's like, "Hey, there's cuts happening." And we're like, well, I mean, I don't have any service, and now you have a flight. You're just sitting there like the long fire, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I think to my brother's point, it's like, how many cuts can you survive? They had the major cut back in April of 2020 when the pandemic first hit. Then they had 3 more. So like we were the 4th set to get cut. I mean, how many can you escape really in 1 year?
It kind of feels good to be the last one, I guess. It's like, it's like you escaped 3 massive cuts, and the 4th one might have been like, well, let's just release more guys. It's like, kind of accept it.
No, I'm sorry to keep going back to your contracts. At the end there, when you went back to 205 Live, did your contract status change? Did they switch you back to an NXT contract, or were you still the same
main roster?
Still main roster.
Yeah.
Now, why did they split you guys up from Jinder? Because a lot of times it seems like they'll split up acts that are working for no real reason. Like, there's not really a plan in place.
To be honest, no reason was given to us. I remember we were taken out, I think, on SmackDown by Lars Big Lars, who was just making his debut as well. So I think that was the last set of tapings where the three of us were on, and then next week we were on 205 Live. And I think Jinder got hurt shortly after that too. So, but it had nothing to do with we were already
split up before his injury. So
they had the brand split up at the time anyway. So
but it was almost like, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 3 years we were with them. It felt like we had kind of done what we needed to do.
Right.
You know, I mean, I just felt like, okay, I think it was like, you know, like maybe, I don't know, maybe you could have dropped us one more time on TV, which already happened a few times, so it wouldn't have an impact, you know. Like, I remember after he dropped the title, Jinder, he dropped us. People thought we were done, but then we just came back the following week. So, but I felt like at that point, to be honest, like, you know, we wanted to really do our Bollywood shtick, which we weren't being able to do. It came to a point where, like, I think we all accomplished what we wanted to with that run specifically, and it was time to do something different.
Which is good because they left it open ended. So it's always sometimes it's best to just kind of go your separate way.
I will say that as fun as like our first 3 years were, like the most fun we had was this last year on 205. We're working every week. We're just coming down. We're having like 12, 15-minute matches, just, you know, and 205 is more like, hey, just go do your thing. And we were just us, and we were just wrestling. And it was so much fun, and it was probably the most fun I know we had in our WWE run.
What is kind of the thought process, do you feel like, with 205 Live now? Because it seemed like, you know, when they first brought it back, you were seeing the Cruiserweight title matches on Raw. They were having them on pay-per-views. Now it's just almost completely its own thing outside for occasional Cruiserweight title matches on NXT. I think
it's just a feeder for NXT at this point. Just get guys in the ring. It's almost like a Superstar show or a main event or a Velocity or what have you. You know, it's just something, if you're not on NXT almost, you're on that. And that, again, like, it's a 25-minute show, and we were consistently booked. So that was always a good thing for us. We always felt like we were on the right track. It's like, it's not a very long show, but, you know, with a lot of talent. Sorry.
Yeah, and there were rumors for a while that they were going to be introducing Cruiserweight tag team titles. Did you guys ever hear that?
We heard the rumor, but nothing obviously came to fruition. I don't even know if it was true or not, but we had heard rumors about it.
Yeah, it was just everybody was talking about it.
We heard about it like 4 or 5 years ago, but, you know.
Right.
That's it.
So when they paired Jinder up with Veer and Shanky, was that a thing where Jinder contacts you just to let you guys know, or anyone, or not really?
No, nothing there. No, just we all saw it happen on TV, just like everybody else.
I was saying we were on 205 doing our thing, and, you know, I mean, at that point, we were just happy what we were doing, and we were loving what we were doing on 205 this last 1 year. And so it wasn't even kind of on our radar. I'm sure it wasn't on their radar. Again, it was kind of done. Like, how many times do you kind of keep going back?
Right.
You know, I don't think it would have had the same.
I'm happy for Veer and Shanky. Those kids are excited. Yeah. You know, they're getting a huge opportunity to be in the limelight now in front of a mainstream audience. So good for them. I hope they do well and they succeed.
Yeah. It's kind of wild that there's a Disney movie based on Veer, and it's never mentioned on TV.
Yeah,
I never watched it.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah. What was your relationship like with Vince McMahon? And did you ever get to really talk to him much? It seems like it's harder for talent now to be able to get one-on-ones.
We would mostly see him in gorilla position, you know, after we would do our segment and get the thumbs up from the boss. If, you know, sometimes not being called over is a good thing. So anytime you can just walk back and get the thumbs up, or like, sometimes no news is good news, right? You know what I'm saying? So just go about your business. But our interactions were very limited. I mean, but when we did talk to him, it was always
very positive and very like cordial and very like,
especially after. Sorry, go ahead, Harsh.
I was gonna say, yeah, very positive in that sense. Like they'd just be in gorilla, and you know, whenever it was always enough to make us feel like, oh, we're doing well. You know, keep doing your thing, and you know, good things will come out of it.
He's a busy man, right? There's only so much he can make time for everybody. So
right. Well, what about with Triple H?
Yeah, no, him. We were obviously, you know, when we got signed, it was under his eye. So you know, he was always give us feedback whenever possible. And I remember after the India show, you know, shaking hands with us and saying thank you for the work, and saying that, you know, we've all waited a long time for a show like this. You know, so it was many years in the making. So you know, especially going back to the India show in January, you know, they put a lot of hard work into that, into producing that show and making it happen, you know, and who knows what the plans are for them as far as the future goes. But, You know, having the boss pat you on the back after a main event match, you know, for the India special. I don't know if you watched that cold open they did. You know, that was one of the best cold opens I've ever seen, just because it gave us goosebumps and flashbacks to our parents. Like, you know, like everything like they worked for in India, because our parents are immigrants. They moved here in the 70s, and like, you know, our father's story about immigrating here, driving a bus, our mom being a retail worker, and just, you know, it's that old school work hard mentality. So like for us, like that show in India, the India show was more for them than it was for us.
Right.
And you know, that's why I think when Hunter said, "Hey, you guys have waited a long time for this," is like, here, mom, dad, this one's for you. So
yeah, no, that is amazing. I know how you feel. My parents were both in the village in India. And the same thing. They came here in the 70s, just a year or two before I was born.
Yeah, and like, you know, even our release, like I think our parents took it the hardest, because they know how hard we worked to get to where we were, and but they don't. We had to remind them a few times, like, don't worry, things are gonna be just fine, and it'll all work out in the end. Because nobody was prouder than our dad to tell other people, hey, well, you know, our son's work for WWE. So yeah.
And he always have our videos and pictures ready to go on his at a moment, like, this is what I can do, right? So, this is a proud dad.
So yeah.
I did want to ask you, when you were at NXT, did you ever see Vince backstage? There's always these rumors about Vince in NXT.
Never when we were there.
Sorry, well, I missed that. I was cutting off here.
Oh, I was just wondering if you ever saw Vince backstage at NXT or.
No, yeah, not that we were there.
Yeah. Was there ever any just talk about how Vince might see NXT? Because, you know, lately you've been seeing talent come up from NXT and they don't seem to be used the best. And
guys like us,
it's just kind of odd.
We were trying to get on NXT, you know what I mean? So it was like we're on 205, like, you know, we're like trying to knock on the door of NXT, and you would think NXT is 205 and NXT are right there, but it was, you know, again, the journey of WWE is peaks and valleys, right? And so when we're on 205, like, our goal was now to get on NXT, and like, we weren't even thinking that far now.
Sometimes it's just the landscape too. Like, they have so many, you know, signees down there, and we were even talking to the higher ups in NXT. Hey, what about sending us to the UK? Like, we would love to go on NXT UK, because UK's got such a big Indian. They have so many, just, you know, big population down there too. So we're like, hey, just throw us over there. So, you know, we were just hoping, like, to my brother's point, get on NXT or NXT UK, or wherever we wanted to fit, wherever we can. But I'll leave it at that.
I think the Bollywood Boyz, I think it's, you know, what you guys had mentioned before, it's such a unique gimmick that hasn't really been done. You could go both ways with it. You could have be a babyface gimmick, or you could have it be a heel. You guys are arrogant, you know.
It's funny you say that, because we did do that on 205. Right? I think 1 week we were babyfaces, the next week we were heels, and then for 3 weeks we were babyfaces, and for 2 weeks we were heels. So if you go watch the product bag, it's like, we were just alternating back, which was good. It was good. It was good practice for us.
Like, kind of like wrapping what you just asked. It was like, we were just trying to, like, hey, this is what we can do. 1 week we're heel, 1 week we're face, and, you know, putting out social media videos, whatever it took. And like, it's crazy. You're part of WWE, but you're still trying to get noticed, you know. And that's like hard work never stops unless you get picked or chosen. You're showing up to TVs every week, and you got to be on your A game. You got to pitch something, or, you know, film something, or, okay, I got a 15-minute match. Let me try to do something that's unique or different this time around. So it was like, whether it was NXT, just trying to get re-noticed to get back wherever that was.
Yeah. And since you guys signed with WWE, I mean, now the landscape is just completely different for pro wrestling. Pre-pandemic, were you able to pay much attention to, like, AEW forming, or, you know, New Japan, any of these other companies?
Yeah, the buzz was online. I mean, you know, we would see it on Twitter, and it was good for everybody involved.
I mean,
you know,
I was just gonna say, like, it's so important to have options, because, like, when you get in a situation like this, think back to, like, when WCW folded. I could only imagine what a lot of those guys were going through. Like, indie wrestling wasn't what it is now. You know what I mean? You could make a pretty good living getting out there and, you know, reestablishing yourself. But, like, 25 years ago when WCW folded, there was nothing. And that's scary, man. And so, like, now with like Impact and AEW and New Japan and pro wrestling tees and all these avenues for guys like us, and who this is our job, this is our livelihood, and like you can't just cross over into a different career at this point. You kind of just have to keep going.
This is all we know. This is it for us. So.
It's come out that Daniel Bryan and CM Punk are likely headed to AEW. Did you guys get to work with Daniel Bryan? I don't think you ever wrestled him.
No, we did some. He was the general manager of SmackDown, I think. So it was just cool. We've actually, when Daniel, he did some indie stuff in Vancouver when we were just kind of breaking in. So it was cool, like looking at how 10 years later we're all kind of there, and he was a GM.
I think he was brought in as a commentator too for the Cruiserweight Classic tournament.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, so those are pretty much it. No real interactions, like obviously in ring or anything like that. But just he's always been cool with us, and that's that.
Yeah, he wasn't cleared at that time, I believe. So that's why he was doing the general manager thing.
Right. But it does seem like, you finally have a strong number two, which you haven't really seen it since WCW. Impact, they definitely had their following there for a while. But now you got a strong number two. Do you think a CM Punk and a Daniel Bryan could, I mean, WWE is always going to be WWE, but can really tip the scales a little bit as far as
they're massive names. I mean, I think they're big superstars in the world of pro wrestling. Anywhere if they went to any company, they would really get people, oh, what's going on here, right? So I mean, I think that'd be great for pro wrestling as a whole for all companies. If those two showed up, that'd be huge.
And it's not like they're past their prime; they're in their prime.
Right.
It's just going to take a couple. To my brother's point, I think it's
Punk's a Blackhawks fan, so I don't know, man.
Now, and to that point, now we discussed this earlier. Now, pretty much every night during the week here in the U.S., you got pro wrestling on TV with Raw, NXT, AEW, Impact, and then you also have ROH, MLW, NWA. Yeah. What are some of the matches out there that really intrigue you? And opponents?
Opponents, we've said this before. I think anything with as far as AEW goes, like FTR Revival, we would love to get in with them. You got Young Bucks, we've always wanted to work with those guys. FTR because in NXT we would always talk about it, but it never happened. We were always on this different wavelengths at the time. Just our paths never crossed. But there's so many tag teams out there. I mean, off the top of my head, sorry, go ahead, Harv.
I was going to say it's cool when we look at wrestling companies right now. We have friends in all companies, and we're we used to. I remember sitting with Bennett and talking to him, and he's in ROH. Oh, we can finally work on. Or LP, who's in New Japan. I think he's still the IWGP Junior Tag Champ out there, and we literally came up to the ranks on the Canadian Independents with them. So it's like, oh, finally we can do this. It's just now we're it's that that freedom to, oh, this would be cool, and this would be cool, and this would be cool. But to my brother's point, FTR, we'd always sit at the NXT shows, and we'd always say, we'd love to work you guys, and it just never happened. So I mean, for us, we're excited, man. Like wherever we go, whether it's no matter where, it's just we got friends all over the place. So it's hey, we'd love to work you. Let's come in. You know what I mean? So it's pretty exciting in that sense.
And you also are now on Pro Wrestling Tees. You got the butter chicken
shirt. Forever.
Raj, you a big fan of butter chicken?
I'm a huge fan of butter chicken. Actually, the best butter chicken I've ever had was this restaurant called Bukhara in New Delhi. So if you ever go there.
Oh, really?
Bukhara.
Right.
Mom makes really great homemade chicken breast butter chicken. So it's a little, I don't want to let tell people that we go all out. It's chicken breast butter chicken. It's a little healthy.
Yeah, I just made this chicken curry the other night. It's in the Instapot. It's drumsticks, but
are you a regular naan guy or a garlic naan guy?
Garlic naan.
Yeah, I figured.
Absolutely. But I mean, I'll take the regular naan too.
Yeah, let's talk about.
I have bisan and gulab jamun in my fridge right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Indian food, man, and we had bindi aloo as well, and it's just money.
Oh, it's great. It's my favorite cheat meal.
Yeah.
You get some gulab jamun, you get some jalebi, and get some homemade paneer and palak.
I think brother and I might just open up our own Indian shop. To be honest, man, like a little restaurant. have it all, like Bollywood movies, meat shop, and some matai, some sweets.
I always thought, if you take up a piece of garlic naan, cut it up, into like chips, and you have like the butter chicken dipping sauce.
There you go.
Like that would just suck people in, and
You're right.
especially
You're
people that have
ready-
never had Indian food that just taste that, it'd just get them hooked.
Rod, you're writing vignettes for us. I'm going to keep that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So on Pro Wrestling Tees, how can people find you? It's
So our booking email is at bollywoodbooking10@gmail.com, and we're on Pro Wrestling Tees, Bollywood Boyz with a Z. We got some new merchandise up, and we're gonna be keep adding more because that's a cool thing, man. Like you get released, and it's just this outpouring of love, and you don't know it. You don't know if it's gonna be there, and it is there. And people are buying T-shirts, and people are messaging you, and Hall of Famers are messaging you. So it's stuff like that makes you feel really good coming into this next chapter of your career.
And we're excited. Honestly, we're just ready to rock and roll, and we know that we're far from done. Again, we love this business, and we have too much on the line, too much going for us as far as like why we're doing this, and a lot of it is and not to sound like all sentimental, but a lot of it is for our parents. Like we want to succeed for them. Like I think sometimes we get so caught up in we got released or this is what we did. No, man, like Raj, like even you would understand, like especially having parents who immigrated here, like you see their hard work, you see their struggles, and you're like, man, like I want to give them that lifestyle. I want to give back, and for us, like wrestling was what united us as a family on Saturday night mornings or Monday night, watching wrestling. So again, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there, but definitely for our parents.
Obviously, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I know the fans of the site are gonna love